Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest joining us in the Combat Zone booth. He was just victorious at Octagon 76, extending the streak to 6 in a row. It's none other than Denis the Menace Frimpong. Denis, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Yeah, healing up well. Still, still riding that wave of euphoria, I suppose, that you get from winning an MMA contest. Uh,
Mm.
yeah, the initial high definitely settles off after a day or so, but still riding that wave. Still enjoying my food, but I'm hungry to get right back in there in the mix. I've had an active year. I want to keep it going. So.
Let's talk about this frequency. After that fight with George in 2023, you have just hit another gear. Walk me through this bout with Peter, right? Third round stoppage. Did it go per your expectations?
I mean, if anyone's watched any of the build up, any of the lead up, any of the interviews I've done in the lead up to the fight, I did predict and I did say exactly how the fight would go. I knew that he would come out strong in the first round. I knew that using my elite level cardio and conditioning, I would wear him down. I would drag him into deep waters. And I said end of the second or beginning of the third round. And towards the end of the second round, I could feel him starting to fade.
Mm.
Um, Coming into the third round, I looked across the cage at him and I knew. And I even said to him before we came to the middle, I said, "Oh, you tired, lad?" You didn't say anything back. So I knew at that point that I was going to finish him. My corner said, "Yeah, it's one round apiece. You've got to win this round." And I just said, "Ah, it doesn't matter about the scorecards. I'm going to finish him in this round." So yeah, I knew exactly how the fight would go. Um, I know what I bring to the table. I am not a fast starter. I will be the first to hold my hands up there and say I don't come out blasting it out the gate.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm too intelligent for that. I'm too patient. I'm too high IQ for that. I'm not one of these moronic brawlers that comes out and just starts swinging overhands from their hip. I download information, I take on board that information, and then I use that information against them in the later rounds.
Yeah, well, there's no point to rush out there in the first 10 seconds. We've got 15 or 25 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Um, was there, in terms of maybe surprises, right, with how well the game plan worked or anything that Peter offered back, did anything jump out to you on that night in September?
So there was two things that surprised me actually. The first thing was how hard he hit. He actually hit very hard. Um, I've only ever been dropped once before in a fight, or in
Mm.
general. Like I've been buzzed and stuff like that, but I've only ever been dropped twice in my life. I've never been knocked out. Once was against Bo Gavin.
Mm.
Clipped me on the top of the head, dropped me, came back, won the round, beat him on a decision. And then Peter, he did. He kind of caught me after a spin, stepping back, and I just didn't have my wits about me. I didn't have my defenses with me, and he caught me. My foot missed the ground, and yeah, I managed to recover, and I blagged it a bit, I think, with the feint. Um, but I definitely felt rocked. Like my feet were not underneath me. But he obviously couldn't tell because of my feint game being as elite as it is. What also surprised me was actually how who his grappling was. Like I thought he was a good grappler. Like I'd seen him wrestling in a lot of fights, and from what I could see, he had a pretty decent ground game. But when I took it to the ground in the first round, I felt that, and then going into the second round, the way he was lunging in with that overhand, I thought, yeah, it, I'll just take him down. And like I know I'm better than him down there, so I took him down, and it was the first time in my entire pro career that I've shot a takedown in a fight.
I believe there is a vision that you have, right? You said you want to get back at it, you want to be active. What does that look like to you moving forward?
Well, I mean, the way I agreed it with Octagon at the start of this year was that I would have four fights this year. I want to stay
Mm.
active. I have a young family to provide for. I've had a kid. Christmas is coming up soon. I haven't had a fight since May, and I like to be active. Like I mean, I've only been doing MMA just over 4 years now, just about
Mm.
4 years, and that was from my amateur debut. I had 8 amateur fights, and this was my 11th pro fight. So whatever that happens to be, 19 fights, in the space of 4 years. I like to be active. So I would like to have another fight this year. Ideally, we're looking at November.
Mm.
That is the fight that's on the table. Gokhan actually called me out. He said, if I win this fight against Peter, he wants to fight me. I won the fight. He then called me out on social media and said he wants to fight. His management have said he wants the fight. The fans want that fight. There's been build up to it already. There's been a bit of hype behind it already. He's ranked, I believe, number 6 or 7 in the rankings. The rankings haven't been updated, so I'm ranked number 10.
Mm.
After that win, I should probably jump up to number 9 or 8. So it's a fight to make, I believe. We're both on a win streak. He's on a 4-fight win streak or a 5-fight win streak. I'm on a 6-fight win streak, 5 fights within Oktagon. So I just think it's the fight to make. And the winner of that fight should get a title shot. Now, it is just on Oktagon, the matchmakers, etc., to send me that contract for that fight, send him that contract for that fight, and we can get that fight made in Munich. I know that he sells tickets in Munich. I have family in Munich. I have fans in Munich from having fought there in May. So that is the fight to make, I believe.
When you mention how the fans clearly want this fight, both you and Gokhan's teams want this fight. Is Octagon clued in on this? Do the matchmakers know, okay, this is clearly the direction that we need to go with both these guys?
I mean, they have to know that that's a fight to make. The matchmakers are intelligent. They know what's going on, so they have to
Yeah.
know that this is the fight to make. Really, this is the next fight to make, and this is the title eliminator fight. We are both on a win streak. We're the only two guys in the rankings on as long of win streaks as we are. He's on a 2-fight win streak in Octagon, 2 finishes. I'm on a 5-fight win streak in Octagon, 2 finishes. Um, it makes sense. We're on a collision course, right? And yeah, it just makes sense. It's a fight that makes sense. We've had back and forth. I know the fight will sell. We've already had back and forth at the Munich press conference last time. It just makes sense. It just makes sense to me. So yeah, it's at this point, Gokhan has verbally agreed to fight me between me
Mhm.
and him. I've agreed to fight him. I wanted to see how my body was going to be after the last fight. Obviously, I only fought less than a week ago. My foot was a bit sore. It's now, it's healed up well enough that I'm back training next week. So that'll be an 8-week, 7-week camp. That's enough for me. I've just come out of camp. I'm still healthy. I'm still fit. So yeah, it makes sense. So at this point, it's on the promotion to send us the contracts. Send him a fight contract. Send me a fight contract for the 22nd of November, and we can get it cracking. And then that, as I say, that'll be 4 fights for me in the year. I will be very happy. I'll be happy with Octagon. I'll be happy with the amount of promotion. I'll be happy with the amount of fights, and I'll
Mhm.
be right in line for a title shot early next year. I believe that is my plan anyway. So.
Let's talk about that title shot because obviously currently vacant at the moment. When you get past Gokhan, who is the name that you want to see opposite you when that championship is hanging in the balance?
I mean, it all depends on how the fight between Richie Smullen and Ivan Butchinger goes.
Hmm.
I believe Richie Smullen is going to beat Ivan Butchinger quite easily. I do, as far as having spoken to Richie Smullen, he's my compatriot. He wants to go back down to featherweight after fighting Ivan Butchinger. That's his natural weight. He wants to go
Hmm.
back to featherweight and compete for the belt at featherweight. On the off chance that Ivan wins, I don't believe he will next weekend. But on the off chance he does, then I believe he's going to be the guy in line for the title shot. I would love to fight him, especially if he manages to somehow get past Richie. As I said, I don't 99.99% sure that Richie's going to smoke him. But on that tiny percentage that he does, this is a fight game. I would love to avenge my compatriot
Mm.
and fight Butchinger for that title. I would love to emulate what Connor did to Ivan Butchinger in Cage Warriors all those years ago. He is a legend of the sport. He is a legend of the sport, particularly in the Czech Republic and Slovakia. He's had over 50 bouts. He's got 45, 46 wins, so he has been doing this game a long time and he is a legend. So I believe I have the skill set to go out there and beat him. And I would like to fight him for the title. But as I said, he probably will get smoked by Richie. He probably
Mhm.
won't be fit to fight for a while. So the next logical step will probably be Mateusz Legerski or Max Koga, whichever one wants to come out. Max Koga's on a win, Legerski's on a loss. I don't believe Legerski will get a title shot on the back of a loss over a year ago.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind fighting Max Koga. Either one, whoever the promotion put in line for the belt. But first, we have to get this bout made, this title eliminator belt made between me and Gokhan Aksu. Um, and if it's not Gokhan Aksu, it can be anyone. Like, you know what I mean? I just want to fight one more time this year. That's all I'm concerned about. And Munich is the ideal candidate. Cologne is a bit too soon.
Mhm.
Munich is in 7, 8 weeks, so that's ideal. Prague is like 2 days after, 3 days after Christmas, so I don't want to be cutting weight at Christmas.
Yeah, family man. I mean, you want to spend that holiday time with the family.
You know what I mean? So, but yeah, like as long as I get another fight this year, that'll be 4 fights in the year. I would like to fight in Germany again. You know, the Germans seem to love me, and that's where my fan base is growing. And I would like to do it one more time in front of the German fans in 2025. Make it 4-4 in Germany, in Oktagon in 2025. And yeah, as I said, then there's an undeniable title shot there for me.
Seems like the perfect time, November 22nd, perfect place in Munich, and perfect opponent seemingly in Gokhan. I want to ask in the near future, if all of these dominoes fall into correct place, you're holding that Octagon lightweight title. What would that mean to you given how quickly your MMA career is unfolding?
Well, when I started martial arts, BJJ at the age of like 22,
Mm,
I never really had any aspirations for fighting MMA. Um, I liked MMA. I liked watching MMA, but in my head, I was like, I'm a bit too old maybe to do what I
yeah.
wanted to do. And I focused on jiu-jitsu and I wanted to become a world champion in jiu-jitsu. COVID happened. The set of circumstances in life and in the world, I suppose, happened where I landed into MMA. I started fighting MMA, and then I realized actually I'm pretty good at this game. I'm pretty hard. I've got good jiu-jitsu now. I've got good striking. I'm built for striking, and why can't I become the best in the world? And it doesn't need to be the UFC. I want to get a world title. Granted, when I started MMA, I didn't know what Octagon was. I had never heard of Octagon MMA. As soon as I did, and I saw the kind of stadiums that they were doing, and the kind of shows that they were doing, and the kind of respect that their champions got when they were champions, I said, yeah, this is definitely a place I could be. As soon as I got signed, I was like, this is where I want to be. I want to get that belt and I want to defend that belt as many times as possible. I want to cement my legacy in one promotion. You know, most of my professional fights, I've had 8 professional fights in Octagon, out of my 11 professional fights. So most of my professional fights are in Octagon. They gave me the opportunity from when I was very early in my career. I didn't have the best record. I'd lost my pro debut. They gave me an opportunity. I built myself up here. I pulled myself up from grassroots, from the Octagon Challenge series, all the way through to fighting my way into the top 10. So I want to complete that mission. I want to then get the belt and I want to defend the belt 8, 9, 10 times, become the longest reigning champion, longest defending, most defenses, selling out arenas, main events on football stadium shows. That is what I want.
I do want to ask about one of the other fights that had occurred on the card, which was, the Neanderthal Frederick getting it done in round one. But then there was a bit of, I would say, confusion at the press conference. He kind of popped off about how Octagon was treating him. I was curious, what was maybe the thought behind the stage after that, or did you see that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I didn't see what actually happened. I was in the back,
Hmm.
nursing my foot after absolutely dinking my toe off Peter's elbow. Um, but yeah, in my opinion, this guy, he's just come into the promotion a few months ago. He's been signed with zero striking. He's got good jiu-jitsu. I'll give him that. He's got good jiu-jitsu. He chased the guy around the cage, holding on to his ankle. He went viral as a result, went from 8,000 followers to like 500,000 followers. He pulled out of a fight with an infection a few weeks ago, or a couple months ago. And he now thinks that he's Johnny Big Bollocks and that he can
Mm,
make demands that other fighters can't make. Like, you've had one fight on the promotion, you've got four professional fights in total. You're not Johnny Big Bollocks. Get yourself in line. Like I said, I've had 8 fights with the promotion now. I've built myself up here. Um, I've sold fights. I've come in. I've fought co-main events. I've, I've done big numbers for where I'm at. I might not have gone viral from holding onto someone's ankle, but I've put the work in. As have other fighters. As have other
mm.
fighters that also have chimed in, the likes of Loz and Keita, you know, like other fighters that have been here, done that, been champ. You know what I mean? And we have to respect the rules at the end of the day. So he doesn't get to come in and start changing the rules just based on the fact that he has 500,000 followers. No
Yeah.
one gives a fuck about that if you can't fight. So he's picking opponents. He's not fighting the tough opponents. He wants his girlfriend to come backstage. All this sort of nonsense, and I think he's just being a bit of a drama queen, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
And then from what I heard, he was having a bit of a roid rage episode in the back. So maybe Octagon ought to start bringing in mandatory testing on the day,
Yeah.
and seeing if a lot of these guys will still have the same skill set that they have at the moment. But,
Yeah, a lot of them might look a little deflated. If we get in some USADA or drug testing, they might lose some of that definition. Um, I want to transition a little bit outside of combat sports, right? With your Irish roots and connections, this year has been an interesting one for Conor McGregor. Obviously, he is the biggest combat sports figure from Ireland. He's made this whole hoop and holler about campaigning to be president, which again is largely a symbolic fiat role. I'm just curious because, from my understanding, a lot of people in Ireland don't with him, yet he's still going on about how he wants to represent the people of Ireland and do good. Is there truth in it? Is there validity? What's the truth of Connor in Ireland?
like my take on Connor is a bit of a weird one because obviously, like I say, I came from the wave of Connor.
Yeah,
Always was a fan of MMA before Connor. Anderson Silva days, Chuck Liddell days. But yeah, obviously never really thought that it was a thing in Ireland until Connor came around. That's
mm,
what we probably jump into martial arts maybe a bit late. Um, so maybe without him, I wouldn't be doing MMA. But where he's gone and his fall from grace, can't with it. Don't
yeah,
with it. And a lot of his rhetoric lately has been fueled by like xenophobia,
yeah,
Islamophobia, and yeah, maybe very questionable views on immigration and on immigrants in general and on Islam. I myself being a revert to Islam. So I don't with it. I don't with his antics, his
mm,
partying, his dubious criminal activities, we'll say. Despite them not being in a criminal court and being in a civil court, you know, yeah, regardless of whether it was what he said it was, you still got a wife and kids at home and you still went out and
yeah,
betrayed their trust. So I can't respect a man that does that on a man to man level. But I do respect what he's done for the sport when he was on the come up, when he was hungry, when he was motivated. Do I think he'll ever become president? No. Don't think he has enough support in Ireland. He still has some support in Ireland, don't get me wrong, because there is a rising wave of xenophobic sentiment
yeah.
lately. But I don't think he will ever become president of Ireland. But stranger things have happened in the world, so who am I to say that? He did everything else he said he was going to do. Do I think if maybe he hadn't have had all this trouble with the law, and he hadn't have made himself out to be a bit drug addled,
Yeah.
maybe he might have actually been able to do it. If he wasn't punching old men in pubs and if he wasn't,
Being morally bankrupt, then there
yeah,
could
what
be,
I mean,
yeah.
maybe he might have been able to do it, but I just think people have seen his true colors, and the money and the fame have definitely exposed the person that he really is behind all of that. So no, I don't think he'll ever become president. I do think it's just a bit of a charade. I don't also think he'll ever fight again. So I don't know. Maybe he's just going to enjoy his money and ride off into the sunset. I think he should do.
You got to stay relevant somehow, right? And banging the pots and pans about a presidential campaign that won't happen is, I suppose, one way to do it. Probably
Right.
not my preferred method. You do bring up the point of his base, though, for the last however many months, anti-immigration, very akin to what we have going on in the States. Kind of feels like he's trying to appeal to that Western audience more so than anyone in Ireland. But with your, I would say, background, right? Do you see truth to it? Do you think it's maybe overblown in the sense of how immigration is impacting Ireland?
Um, I think that people, especially the working class in Ireland,
Hmm.
have been downtrodden. They have been robbed of their rights as citizens. Ireland's always been a very socialist country from its roots and its founders, in terms of the fact that, the right to housing, the right to education, the right to healthcare, very unlike America in that way. Um, in recent times, there has been a lot of corruption in terms of the TDs, so our parliament, basically, our parliament members in Ireland. I think 55 or 60% of them being landlords, and
Mm,
therefore a lot of corruption in the sense that they will refuse to build social housing, make the demand keep rising because obviously more people are coming into Ireland.
yeah.
That's going to happen as your economy grows. Um, Obviously, the demand for housing then rises, especially in Dublin, where it's the main hub of where people go for work. Um, Less social housing being built, and then the demand going up, which means the price goes up, which means these landlords, these people that are in power that make these rules and these laws, therefore profit more. The issue then is that people that are at the bottom rung of the social economic ladder need a scapegoat to blame.
Mm,
And when you start looking around and you see more and more brown faces, more and more people in hijabs, more and more people that look different and you can clearly see are different to you, um, they're the people that get the blame for it. Because I remember in the early 2000s, it was the Polish, the Lithuanians, and the Latvians, and
mm.
Estonians, and Romanians that were getting the blame when they were joined the EU and they were coming in. They're coming in, they're taking all our jobs, et cetera, et cetera. Now that has kind of moved out because they've had time to amalgamate themselves into society over the last 20 years. Now it's Muslims, it's people from Syria, people from Libya, but they're not being given the chance to, in 20 years amalgamate themselves into society.
Right.
So there will always be a scapegoat. I think that it's founded in the wrong view. I think rather than blaming the immigrants themselves, they should be blaming, billionaires that dodge however many millions in taxes every year. And they should be blaming the TDs that own these properties and leave them empty in order to push the price higher of rent and, basically sell our country out to Facebook and Google and TikTok and these multinational companies that come in and use Ireland as a tax haven. Maybe they're the people that should be getting the blame, but you know, I'm an MMA fighter. I punch people in the head and get punched in the head. I'm not gonna get too deep on that, but that's my view on it.
I do want to close this interview with a topic I have to imagine you are beyond tired of talking about. There was a viral gym fight you took part in with Patty Pimblett, and I'm just curious. Right, so many people probably ask how this happened, what went down. I would like to know, is there something you would have done different, either in the lead up to this or in that little squabble itself?
Mm, yeah, so maybe like I probably wouldn't have gone as hard on. Obviously, when I was on the Octagon Challenge, George Staines was on it and Jake McHugh were on it, and we did take the piss out of them a lot. To be honest, as a team, right? I was kind of the ringleader of that, and like people don't understand. We were in that house for like 3.5 weeks, and I was
Mm.
dieting the entire time, and I was like sitting around 76 kilo. I normally get up to like 85 kilos, so I'm dieting, staying around 76, being able to fight twice in 2 weeks. And on top of that, you're living in a house with people that you're going to be fighting. And on top of that, you've got producers of the show going, "Come on, guys, we need you to like make some
Give some
drama,
drama. Yeah.
make a show out of it." No Wi-Fi. We weren't allowed our phones. There was nothing to do in the house. So we just, you know what I mean? And yeah, I probably did cross some personal lines and some of the stuff I said. Obviously, it was a different time in my life, different place I was in my life in terms of like having a family and stuff like that as well. I was a bit more unhinged back then. So
Yeah.
yeah, like I would have maybe not gone as hard in the paint as far as saying some of the stuff that I said, which probably would have led to not having that beef with Paddy in the first place. Um, but it is what it is. You know, what happened happened. We had it out now. I spent a lot of time in my last camp for Peter training in next gen with Paddy, sparring him. So everything's cool now, as far as I'm concerned. I think as far as he's concerned as well. And yeah, like
Would you
stuff.
would you consider Patty a friend these days then? Has this gone full circle?
I don't know about a friend, but like, yeah, it's cool. You know, like I'm sure he doesn't consider me a friend necessarily. Uh,
Hmm.
we've trained a few times, and like we probably will train some more, and we're not enemies anymore. So I suppose compared to where we were in January, you could say that we've gotten friendlier. You know, but I don't think I'm ever going to go to his house for a tea or anything like that.